Return from body. Very simple.
So this afternoon, I'm supposed to talk about the sutra in 3 sections and Vajrasattva. Mm. Mm. So this morning I talk about this sutra from which Sutra 3 section comes, and I hope you remember that. Is it clear? Is the sound okay? Yep, say something. So the sutra was the title is a sutra which is, something called Vinaya of Mahayana Buddhism requested by Upali, something. They have the English translation of it on this 84,000 website, okay? 84,000 dharmas or something, right? You get the translation. So it'd be nice to read it. At least once will be nice. 84,000 dharma or something. 84,000 words of Buddha or something. Mainly by Dzong right? He's been his team is translating the whole teachings of Buddha into English. Some say it's not very good, some say it's good. I personally read some of the translations. I find them really good, really. I personally think all the sutras, 100% they should be translated. But the tantras, I'm not very sure. Okay, sutras, everybody should read. Everybody. That's why. So in this sutra, first, it's almost like it has two main parts. One is where Shariputra, he asked this question, and then Buddha, he teaches this sutra of 3 sections, and then after that, Upali, he was taking nap in the forest or something. Suddenly he comes from nowhere, and then asks some tricky questions, very important questions. And then in the end, sutra is known mainly from Upali's name, not from Shariputra's name. So either way, so when Shariputra, he asked this question about what would this bodhisattva they do if they face these emotional challenges, or maybe moral challenges. And then answer to that question, Buddha, he talks about the benefit of this. What are you doing? Okay. The benefit of it. So basically, the benefit of chanting this sutra is told by Buddha himself. Told by Buddha himself, and in that very sutra. And the benefit, if you think about the benefit, it's almost like, it's almost like, okay, if we got this sutra, then we can almost do anything we like. It's too much, almost sounds like, okay? So Buddha says basically, the idea is that anger is more serious than desire, and ignorance is even more serious than anger, right? So then Buddha, he said something like, if you commit any negative karma, which are minor, then you can confess to maybe 5 or 10 sanghas or something. And if you commit negative karmas, more serious than that, maybe 20 members of Sangha. It's something like that. And then of course it will be, there's a commentary of it written by one Tibetan scholar, Tibetan Buddhist master called Chonang Taranatha, famous for writing Indian history. So in this commentary he also says, okay, so if someone who commits negative karma by desire has to confess it it can be purified by confessing to 10 members of Sangha, then it will be double and triple for the anger and ignorance. Okay? So then at one point, okay, and the Buddha talks about these things, and then he says, anyone, not just the Bodhisattva, anyone, because the point is when we talk about practice of Bodhisattva, the practice of, the Theravada tradition is also included in it. It's a part of Bodhisattva. And especially if you talk about the vow of Bodhisattva, then Theravada vows are also basic for that. Because the Theravada vows are basically not harming others. And Bodhisattva vow is basically keeping this commitment to help others. And in order to help others, of course, as a basic for that, you need the commitment not to harm others. So that's why it becomes the basic, right? And then of course when we talk about not harming others, we talk about helping others, then we are also talking about doing, everything that is right. So in that case, spirituality basically, everything that is, even if it's not mentioned in sutras, even if Buddha didn't say it, something that is harmful in this world, the logic is that it's not good. It's wrong according to Buddha. And if it's something good, something right, something beneficial, then even if Buddha didn't mention it, then of course the logic goes that it's okay, it's good. It's something to be recommended. So then Buddha says, whoever, especially bodhisattvas, who commit any negative karma through their, desire, strong anger, and not just the strong, but also anything, even, according to one idea is that even for a small, let's say like a desire is not that bad, but if you think about desire, which is not strong, but desire, attachment, whatever, not that strong, but if you always have it, for a long period of time, or even if something we are saying something bad, not that bad, just saying you don't look good. I don't mean to you. Don't take it personally. I just happen to look at you. Okay? I don't mean. Kidding. So just saying, okay, let's say like, okay, usually we say like, you don't look good, you're not doing good, right? Some kind of complaint. But if we do it, repeat it for too many times, it also becomes a strong negative karma. Okay? So anything that is, strong or repeated too many times, which become a serious negative karma. And then also in Buddhism, there are 5 worst negative karmas that one can commit, which are called heinous crimes, right? Which are killing one's parents, trying to harm Buddhist teachings, creating schism, right, between Sangha, and then killing someone who has already achieved the realization, like arhat and so on. So these things are considered as, like the negative karma of these is like, immeasurable. The reason is because usually, we can commit a negative karma, and then until there's a circumstances for that negative karma to bring the result, and then we will be safe. We will be safe. Like maybe we have a negative karma to be, we have a, let's say like we have a negative karma to be killed by someone. I am not using extreme examples, okay? You can think of something light. So let's say, we have a karma to be killed by someone. But as long as we are in a safe place, where there's no one, then even if we have that karma will not be not bring the result, because there's no condition for that. There's no condition for that. So it's almost like we have karma within us, but because in order for this karma to manifest the result, the external conditions also play a very important role. Okay? It's almost like, I'm like, let's say like I'm a diabetic. I am. I do have sugar, okay? A little bit. Not serious. Okay, so I am sugar diabetic. Okay? I'm diabetic. Okay, so inside I have this diabetes, which means the blood sugar will go up, right? But it will only go up if there's sugar, and I'm taking sugar food, right? Sugar food. If there's, if I'm not eating the sugar food, even though I have diabetes, it won't go up. It depends on the causes and conditions, right? Cause I have, but in order for the cause to bring the result, there must be conditions, right? There must be conditions. So that's why conditions also play a very important role. If the condition is quite strong, if the condition is very powerful, even if the cause is little, it will produce the result. Okay? So sometimes we talk about like, I remember when, last time when I came to, I went to Africa. I also went to Zimbabwe. So at that time, I went back, and then there was the COVID thing happening at that time. So, everybody was, because it was just beginning at that time in India, there were only 500 cases. It's quite low. And I came back, I was really scared, thinking that, I might be one of the, I was afraid that, instead of afraid of getting COVID, I was afraid that I will come on the news or something. Saying, okay, he also got the COVID or something. Because at that time, people really thought like whoever was, like it's like they are transporting it. People really had this very bad idea. So then my teacher, he was asking me, he's a Khenpo, and he was asking me, how are you and all this. And I said, okay, whatever. And then he was saying, like, don't worry, if you have the karma to get the COVID, either way you will get it. And if you don't have the karma, either way you won't get it. And then I told him, I don't agree with that. Because even though we have the karma, which is the cause, if there's no condition, it won't work. Right? So sometimes people say like, we tell people, be careful, and then somebody says who are very strong believer of karma, they are like, I don't know whether they are strong believer or not, but usually they say, okay, it's karma. If it's meant to happen, it will happen. No, that's not karma. It depends on the conditions too. That's why we have to be careful. Okay? That's why we have to be careful. Okay, so usually this karma, it depends on our own karma. And then there are also, the people, other people also have, other beings also have their own karma. Then there are causes and conditions, many other causes and conditions. So that's why, function of karma is complicated. So that's why sometimes, even if people who do something bad, doing bad, but good things happen to them, there are good people who are doing good things, and then something bad happened to them, all these things, it's very complicated. It's hard to say anything, okay? Because that depends on so many things, okay? It depends on so many things. But this very serious negative karma, called 5 heinous crimes, they are called, in Tibetan, these are called Samye, which means limitless negative karma. The reason why it's called limitless negative karma is that these negative karmas are so strong that result will be manifested as soon as we die. Okay, so there is this idea, which are like, of course, trying to harm Buddha, really trying to take Buddha's life, someone who is Buddha, That can be, of course, according to Buddhism at least, it's very serious, right? And taking one's parents' life is, of course, very serious. And then killing someone who is a realized person is, of course, we can understand, right? So these are very, very negative karmas according to Buddhism. And then there are also some other negative karmas, like, what to say? Destroying stupas, because stupa represent the realization of Buddha. The whole shape of stupa, it actually represents the realization of enlightened beings. So, destroying stupa is considered as very serious negative karma. So there are some serious negative karmas like that. Okay. So one thing I think here, even though in Buddhist monastery code, Vinaya, in Tibetan we have 13 volumes of Vinaya, 13 volumes of text which talks about monastery code and so on. So there are a lot of like, this is not allowed, this is not allowed, this is wrong, this is wrong. There are lots, too many stories and so on. But for me, one thing really surprised me is that the only punishment for that, if somebody is breaking the, all of these rules, so much so that somebody is, secretly having wife or, breaking all the monastery code and whatever. The punishment is you just have to leave the monastery. That's all. There's no even like, if somebody commits a negative karma, then you have to, hit these 3 times or 10 times and nothing like that. But unfortunately, in Tibet, after some time, then punishment becomes this one, hitting stick. And that's quite bad. The Buddha, he made so many rules and he never talked about punishing someone physically. Okay? So the idea is, according to Buddhism, it's like, somebody is trying to kill my teacher, somebody is trying to destroy this temple, somebody is trying to destroy this stupa. We try our best, we can try to protect, to stop that person. But there is no such thing as, okay, if that person, then you should take revenge or, you should also harm, or it's never. If somebody did something wrong, you did something very wrong, that's your karma. We should have compassion for them. But it's not like we take the action. Sometimes I think like, even for other religions, I think it goes the same reason. We talk about everything is created by God. And then, okay, if somebody does something which is against the God's command, and then they will face the punishment in their next life. Why we take the action? So anyway, so these are the most serious negative karmas and so on. So these then Buddha, he says, anyone, and particularly if a bodhisattva happens to be commit any such negative karmas, the most serious negative karmas, instead of confessing to a person, they can be purified by doing this sutra with 3 sections. Chanting this sutra with 3 sections. 3 times in the morning, 2 times at night. Okay? So here, one point is, sometimes we feel like, okay, so if that's the case, because for us, it's more challenging to find a monk or our teacher and say, I'm sorry because I did this and that, It's quite challenging, right? Because especially, if we think about the wrong things that we do, almost we're doing it every day. I think if we keep confessing it to a teacher, then one day teacher will be like, I'm busy, just go away, I'm tired of listening to... And maybe sometimes the teacher might also say, I'm also doing the same thing, so... So it's kind of challenging. But I think if you really have a teacher, if you really have a, really, some kind of teacher, some teachers that we really have genuine respect. And so much so that the wrong things that we do, we have full trust in that they don't do it and they're better than us. And That kind of teaching. And then we really have this, really what to say, I don't like to use the word guilt, but if you really have conviction that it was wrong, and then if we really have, I think usually in Buddhism what we say is any confession that we make, without the commitment of never repeating again, you can't confess it. It doesn't work. But still, it's, it can purify on some level, but it won't be purified completely. Okay? So in some way, it's very challenging, it's very complicated, because we know for sure that we will do it. Right? Certain things like anger or whatever, okay, desire and whatever, we can't say that never. It's too difficult, right? It's too difficult. So it happens. So that kind of commitment is quite difficult, right? It's almost like impossible, right? But then I think, there's psychologically speaking, like, even between people, when we say sorry, I did something, I didn't mean it, felt sorry. And if you just keep doing it every day, always doing the same thing, you're not really sorry, right? Not really sorry. When you apologize to someone, say sorry to someone, and you really mean it so much that you really feel, I won't say guilt, but you really admit that it was so bad, you really accept it, and you really think this is so bad, and please forgive me. I want your forgiveness so much. I feel sorry to you so much that I never want to repeat it again. Then it's really forgivable. If you feel like, okay, I'm sorry, and I am also sorry next time I do it. It's not that forgivable, right? So that's why commitment is very difficult, but for me, what I do is at least because there are certain things that are really wrong, no matter what. We don't even have to believe in any religion, we don't even have to be honest, most of these, whatever is taught in Buddhism, talking about what is wrong. Usually it's wrong according to the whole universe. It's wrong, really. Most of them. Okay? So these things, certain things are wrong, and then when we talk about we want to practice Dharma, we want to become a Buddhist or whatever, especially if you go even deeper and we talk about wanting to achieve liberation, wanting to attain enlightenment, then of course, we need this commitment to do these wrong things as less as possible. At least we have to try that. We need to have that kind of commitment. At least we'll try our best. Right? That's the whole point of practicing Buddhism, because we're just saying, we're not saying that, we're not saying that I will be generous because I'm Buddhist, I will be patient because I'm Buddhist, I will be compassionate with you because I'm Buddhist. We can't say that. We are human beings. We also have the same biological, whatever, psychological, or all these things. We can also lose our temper. We can also want things or whatever, right? But practicing Buddhism, at least when we practice Buddhism, at least what we are doing is we think, okay, I want to, improve myself. I want to do better. I want to try my best. At least we are on that track. And I think that track is very important. Sometimes we might lose a little bit, but at least, we shouldn't follow a wrong track where we think, in some way, I think, really people, most of us, we belong to a very good class or good type of people. Because for us, at least we believe certain things are wrong, harming people, harming anyone is bad, right? But there are people who think, doing bad things is good, fun, just do it, right? Even nearby Samye Lake, there are people, I heard, they shoot the bird. How can we, for someone who has any moral sense, how can it be fun? How can it be enjoyable? Even for me, I had this feeling like, the people who steal, people who steal things, like let's say, somebody has lost something and people steal it. If we think about the trauma and the suffering and sadness of that person losing that thing, can we even steal it? I might steal maybe 200 pounds or 300 pounds from you. For me, it's very temporary. After a few days, not even few days, one day it will finish if I spend it in such a way. But for that person, it can be quite traumatic. Right? If you think from that way, then it's impossible, How happy that person will be if he find it and search it, and sometimes in the wallet there are cards and so on, and they give to that person, how happy that will be. And that person's trust and faith in humanity will also be maintained. And that person will actually, in the future, also want to, be kind to other people because, we are keeping that faith, right? So in some way, we look from that perspective. But there are people, there are many people who doesn't look things in that way. For them, it's just like, okay, if I got something to steal, it's nice. I'm smart, I'm successful. So there are these type of people, right? But at least we don't do that thing. So which means, at least we are not on that track. At least we are on the track where we are saying we want to be better and we try our best. Okay, we try our best. We're not Buddha, okay? We're not even Bodhisattva, but at least we like them, we adore them, we respect that kind of life. Okay, we are on that track. And at least, even if we don't become Buddha, even if we are not Bodhisattva, at least something good is something meaningful, right? It's something meaningful. So that's why what I think is, at least it's important to have a, commitment, thinking that I'll try my best not to do any wrong things. Okay? Okay, then, so for that reason, so in some way we might think like, okay, so it's, Mahayana Buddhism. This way of Mahayana Buddhism is much simple, and then it's almost like, okay, so because I don't have to face any person as a teacher, so I can, whenever I do something stupid, something wrong, I can just read Sutra 3 sections and then, I can confess to Buddhas, nobody has seen me, I'm safe. But I think that's wrong. That's wrong. Because for these Bodhisattvas, the reason why confessing to these Buddhas is so powerful is because these Bodhisattvas, for them, confessing to an individual person, a person who also has so much flaws and so on, more than that, it's much more powerful, and it makes even more sense for them to confess to the Buddhas. Because for them, the Buddhas, they really exist as much as like someone like my friend who exists for me. Okay? So that when they confess to Buddhas, they're really confessing to these Buddhas. So it can be powerful. Okay? For us, because if if we have our mentalities, okay, maybe they exist, maybe they don't exist, but I'm confessing you, it doesn't make sense. I'm not even confessing, right? To whom I'm confessing? I don't even believe that whether you exist or not. In that case, I think if our faith and devotion and trust in these Buddhas is not enough, then I don't think it can be that powerful to purify our negative deeds. So that's why we have to understand why for the Bodhisattvas it works, and why usually for the Theravada Buddhist monk it's more important for them to confess to a person. Okay, there's this difference. So that's why it's difficult to say. It's difficult to say that talk about the existence of these Buddhas. I haven't seen any of them. Okay, But in some way, I think, in some way, for a long time, people also thought our world is just very small, right? For like how many thousands and thousands of years, for people from India, people from Tibet, especially those who follow either the Indian mythology or Indian tradition, or Indian understanding of the world. They basically thought there's India, there's China, there's Tibet, then there's one sun, one moon, and just there's no such thing as America, there's no such thing as Europe. There's no such thing as Europe. Right? There's no such thing as Australia, New Zealand. What is that? Even though Tibet is in Asia, for Tibetan people, there's no such thing as Japan or Korea. It's just China, there's just India. That's all the whole world is. Right? But at least in the West, they had this understanding of, there's China, there's even Japan, Maybe they didn't know that there's something called America, right? It's not called America, but this land. But then as we grew, as we got more information, got more knowledge, had more advancement of technology, we came to know more world. And now there are like billions of galaxies and so on, right? So we never know whether they are Buddhas or not. Okay? But in some way I feel like, even though we don't know, but believing in the possibilities of these Buddhas can be quite beneficial, really. Okay? So then Buddha says one can do the Sutra of 3 sections to purify even these serious negative karmas. So that is the benefit of doing the Sutra of 3 sections. Okay, Sutra of 3 sections. So in this case, I think if we take it literally, really that is the best way to purify all the negativities, at least according to Mahayana Buddhism. Okay, as someone who practices it, this is the best thing that we can do. So whether we accept or not, we do a lot of negative karmas, and if there is something which can purify some of them, even if we can't, it's worth doing, right? And even in Tantra, there are some tantric texts also mentions of this sutra. Says that if someone chant this for repeatedly for 3 months, so many negative karmas can be purified. So the basic thing is that both in Mahayana Sutra and both in Tantra, this benefit of this sutra and tradition of this sutra is told and recommended. Okay? Okay, then this Sutra of 3 sections is actually part of this one larger sutra. And then in the morning I talked about at least there are 3 different traditions, 3 different versions of Sutra of 3 sections. And then in India there was Shantideva, the one who wrote the guide to the way of Bodhisattva's life. Okay? He is considered as Nagarjuna is like a philosopher. Chandrakirti is like a philosopher. They know they're very good at emptiness. But the Shantideva is really he was really like a bodhisattva in human form. He really represented this ethics view and conduct of a bodhisattva. He was like a living bodhisattva. And people say that his book is actually, this text called Guide to the Way of Bodhisattva's Life is so inspiring, it's so beneficial to people. mainly because he himself was a great bodhisattva. And there is so much compassion and love in this book, you know. So all the things that he mentioned in that book is really something that came from his own experience, his experience of living as a real bodhisattva. Okay, so he's a great bodhisattva. And I think he came in 8th century or something. Some say before that, but I think he came in 8th century. Came in 8th century. Can I say that? Okay. If you are not happy with me, you can say something. You know, there will be no problem. I don't think there is any corpse or anything. So in his book, he actually wrote 2 books. One is the one that I just mentioned. Other one is called Shiksha Samujaya or something. Shiksha Samujaya. So basically, this is really, I read it a few times, and it's really more like collecting all the important quotations, beneficial and important quotations taken from all the important sutras. And he himself was actually a practitioner of Vajrayana too, even though he was not like a Vajrayana yogi, but he practiced a little bit of simple kind of Vajrayana tradition, which usually we call Kriya Tantra. There's a little bit of visualization of the deities, a little bit of mantra recitation, but not like yogi, doing all sorts of crazy things, not that type of, because this type of tantra is very suitable for the monks and nuns too. So that's why he also used to practice it. And so anyway, he wrote these 2 texts. In one of the texts, this Guide to the Way of Bodhisattva's Life, he talks about, Bodhisattva should read Sutra of 3 sections 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the night, something like that. But from this, of course, we won't understand. We won't know which Sutra of 3 sections that he's talking about, right? And then, for us, it's quite, because once we know that, Sutra of 3 sections is quite important, there are few versions of it, then it's important for us to know, like, okay, the one that we are doing, how important it is. Naturally we are curious about it. So then Shantideva, in his other book, then he quotes the whole thing. He says a bodhisattva should read the Sutra of 3 sections, and then he quotes this whole thing. Okay, and then says, okay, one should read this to purify any negativities, and then of course, even according to Shantideva, is the best way of purifying of negativities. There's almost, from the Mahayana Buddhist point of view, Sutra tradition, there's nothing better than this one, okay? That we can be sure. There's nothing greater than this to purify our negative karmas. The only other one is, there's other one, the best one. Can anyone guess it? Huh? No. I'm talking about from Sutra tradition. So for the Sutra tradition, the other one is, no. The other one is, instead of just purifying it, literally experiencing it. Because when he experiences it, then it will be purified, because the cause, it's already got the result and then finished. But that is too risky. That can be, that's not a good idea. Let's not try that one. Let's find a better, safer way. So this is the safer way, okay? There's no way which is safer than this. Okay? So Shantideva, he says that. And then, from this, I think then, so from this, I think we can understand a few things. One thing is that, so really doing the one, like even great master like Shantideva strongly suggest, this is the version, generally speaking, Sutra of 3 section is very important for the Mahayana Buddhism, and particularly from Shantideva's perspective, this version, even though maybe it's the same thing that is mentioned in the one old sutra that I mentioned, maybe different, either way, this one is really the best one from the Shantideva's perspective. Okay? And then here, I forgot to mention one point. And that one point is, usually, in Buddhism, actually the rituals are not important. Rituals are not important. It's not very ritualistic religion. And during the time of Buddha, nobody is beating drums and playing, this one. Nobody is doing it. There was no one. At that time, the Buddha was not saying like, okay, young monk, you first go to learn how to make tormas. There was no such tradition. None of disciples of Buddha know how to beat the drum. But these days in Tibet, it has become a very important part of the practice. If you know the visualization and everything, all these can be support for the Dhamma practice. Okay, but we should not misunderstand, thinking that these are very important practice. Okay, if you think that, that's wrong. Okay. Okay, so during the time of Buddha, people either they were doing the meditation, busy doing the meditation, or they are repeating the sutras, memorizing and repeating the sutras. Sutras and Vinaya, monastic code, and sutras, the teachings of Buddha. Okay, because at that time they don't have the writing system. They had, but they don't use this script to transcribe, write down, because you don't have time, you just practice. Okay? So they don't use it. So that's why there is no ritual. The only ritual that they had at that time was when they received the monastic vow. So at that time they had some rituals. So in this case, ritual only means like, when somebody received the vow, some monks would like, usually it's something like that. Before receiving the vow, one monk will take us to the corner of the shrine hall and asking us questions like, did you kill your parents and so on? Did you commit some negative karmas or not? Are you allowed to become monk or not? These questions. And then they will go to another monk, the senior monk, and to tell him and to tell all of them that now he has the condition, he has the qualification to become monk. And then everybody says, asking question 3 times, all these things. So there's that kind of simple ritual. Okay, nothing more than that. So when we receive monks, it's just like basically asking questions and all these things, repeating 3 times and so on. There's no such like, okay, now you have become the monk and then there's the music. Nothing like that, okay? It's just very boring. And then even in Mahayana Buddhism, the ritual is only when we receive the, when we receive the Bodhisattva vow. It's also only about repeating few times and then like this, okay, now you receive the vow. The ritual is so simple. There's hardly any ritual. And then the only other ritual in Mahayana tradition is doing Sutra of 3 sections. Why it's called ritual is because when we do it, there is this rule, like, okay, first you do the prostration, then you do the confession, then you do the dedication, and then this is something that you have to do 3 times in the morning, 3 times at night, so this becomes a ritual. It's hardly any ritual, right? It's a very simple, basic ritual. And the fact is that it was the only other ritual that they had, other than receiving the Bodhisattva vow. And because this one is like, this is mentioned at least in the one of the oldest Mahayana Sutra, so from this we can understand that Sutra 3 section is actually one of the oldest ritual of Mahayana Buddhism. Okay? And one of the 2 most important rituals of Mahayana Buddhism. Okay? So it has a very important cultural, historical significance too. And then during the time of Shantideva, during the time of Shantideva, it became like, it's very clear because Shantideva, he has been very influential. Among all the texts that were composed by Indian masters, the one that has the most number of commentaries is actually Shantideva's text. Okay? Because his text was studied by so many of them. All others, Nagarjuna, were not read by other school, which are called minor school. Some great masters like Asanga, Vasubandhu, the people who, great masters who follow all the tradition called middle way, they think, okay, they are wrong, whatever. But his commentary is like, everybody, all Mahayana Buddhist practitioners should follow the Bodhisattva's way of life. So from this we can understand that at least during the time of Shantideva, the tradition of reading this, chanting this every day by monks and lay people alike, it's almost like very universal in India. And then that came to Tibet, and then Tibet, it was translated, I think, around 8th century or something, 8th or 9th, I think 9th century. And after that, there's a history which says that the Guru Rinpoche, when he came to Tibet, he told the king to recite it. Because Guru Rinpoche said, because the kings, especially at that time, kings, they had to do a lot of negative karmas. They're like for me, sometimes I think ancient kings are like the kings of negative emotions and negative karma. Calmness vibe, killing so many people, arrogance, jealousy, They are really like the embodiment of negative karma and negative emotions, really. Sometimes I feel like compared to them, I'm almost like, perfect. Kidding, okay? I'm just making fun, okay? Okay, so Guru Rinpoche, he told to the king, because the kings, they commit so much negative karma. So that's why this would be the best for you to chant, okay? And then also in Chinese Buddhism, because Chinese Buddhism is mainly Sutra tradition, and even in Chinese Buddhism, they also read it. It's also very popular. And in Chinese, they have something called 88忏悔, 对吧? Something like that. And so the idea is in this, something that they read, it is 88 Buddhas. So 35 Buddhas comes from this section, and 53 Buddhas comes from another one, Sutra. So they combine these two, so they have got 88 Buddhas, and then rest of the, confession and dedication is same like this one. So in China, I'm not sure how much popular it is, but I heard in many of the monasteries, many of the people, they read it every night. But usually, it's quite difficult to read in the morning, so that's why the Chinese Buddhism also have this tradition. And in Tibet, it is very much read by everyone. When I talk about this one and the Heart Sutra, some of these practices, even though we have different lineages like Gelu, Sakya, Nyingma, Kagyu, and so on, but this is for universal. Everyone read it. In Tibetan Buddhism, if you say you don't know how to read it from your mind, and then it's almost like you usually don't read anything. So it's a very universal, okay? Universal thing. And that's kind of, what you say? Historical and, I feel like I made some notes, but when I need them, I can't even find them. Okay, not that important. In Tibetan translation of Indian commentaries, usually there are some, I think if I remember, 4 or 5 texts related to this one. And there's a commentary, there's one commentary which says is written by Nagarjuna, but usually scholars, they don't agree with it because it has got some elements of tantric tradition. And usually, usually according to researchers, Nagarjuna came around maybe 2nd century or something, and there was no Vajra tradition at that time, so that's why usually they don't agree. And even there's this great master who wrote a commentary of it, a Tibetan great master, Taranatha he's called. He also says it was not written by Nagarjuna. But this Taranatha, I don't know if his commentary is translated into English or not. If there is, it's really, really good. Even though we have different commentaries of it, we have some commentaries, I think, written by Gelug masters. And in Karma Kagyu tradition, we have one commentary written by one disciple of 15th Karmapa, 15 Karmapa. He's called Mendong Sampa. He was a great master. He was also really a living bodhisattva. At the end of his life, he studied at Sutra monastery, Karmapa's monastery. In the latter part of his life, at the end of his life, because he was from Western Tibet. So Western Tibet is full of, sand, just like Ladakh and Western Tibet, So he was from there, and at the end he made a hole in the ground where there are a lot of insects. And then he just sit there, covering until his neck or something. And then he said, I'm going to feed this insect as a part of my practice. And then he just gave all his body. And then insect kept eating. And then he finally died. He didn't move until his whole body was eaten by insects. He did it intentionally, saying that I'm going to give my own body to this insect. And then I heard they have only the left, or maybe head or something. The rest of them are eaten by insects. So from this we can understand, earlier I talked about, what the level of the extent the bodhisattvas can go. So sometimes we feel like, it's impossible, how can they do it? I can't even give 10 pounds. It's not true, in the teachings it says a bodhisattva gives one's life, how can they do it? I can't even give a biscuit. Yeah, it's okay, I can't give a biscuit, but it doesn't mean, there are other people who can do it, So he also wrote a commentary of the Sutra 3 sections. It's also quite nice, but I'm not sure if they have the translation or not. I don't think so. But either way, these translations are quite good. Okay? So with this, I hope now we all have some understanding about the culture and historical and spiritual importance and value of this Sutra 3 sections. Do anyone have? I feel like nobody has. Okay, I hope. And then with that, so I won't go through all of them. It will take too much time. And basically we have the translation. So it's pretty much clear. So anyway, before, usually in the sutra it says, Dag means Dishijiva, which means my name. So usually for the confessions or commitment, usually, it's very important to say one's name. Because it's like, you really mean it, you're really taking it personally, But then according to Tibetan Buddhism, we follow Mahayana tradition. So because giving rise to bodhicitta is very important, so that's why, here Simchen Tamje Takpa Lama Le Japscho. This one is actually added by Tibetans. All sentient beings unceasingly take refuge in the Lama, right? In Sutra it just says, Dagme Shijiwa, my name, like in my case Lekthong, my name Lekthong, go for refuge in Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. And then usually in the commentaries they say it's very important to mention your name. And I personally think maybe the one thing that we can do is, maybe all sentient beings unceasingly take refuge in the Lama, okay? And then I, maybe Lekthong in my name, okay? Take refuge in the Buddhas, I take refuge in, I think something like this is quite good, because in the Sutra it clearly says my name, I name something, okay? And then think about these Buddhas, And then really, when we talk about prostration, we really think it's kind of a tradition. It's a tradition. What is prostration? You did this, you did that, you did a bow down. That is prostration. But that is actually just a means. That's not the whole point. Point is really to have the respect, really to have the faith, really to have the devotion, and really to calm down our ego and all these, we have this too much, what to say, ego or delusion. We think we are somebody, we think we know something, especially when we do such prayers and practices, we might think like, okay, whether it's true or not, I'm quite smart, I don't think it's right, Just let it down. Okay? We can even just think of these Buddhas, or even as an idea, even as an idea, these perfect beings. And if there are these perfect beings, of course, we should offer our respect and devotion and faith. Right? So at that time, it's really important. This one, all these are just means. The whole point of meditation is really not to put two legs together, okay? That's not the whole point of. Maybe for the yoga, it's quite important, right? You have to put in a certain stage. You can't say, you can't put your two feet like this and I'm imagining my other foot is over there in the sky. That doesn't work. Right? Yoga teacher asked, where's your other foot? No, it's in the sky in my imagination. It doesn't work. So for the yoga, maybe it's important. For the meditation, this is not the point. This is not the whole point. The whole point is about your mind. Right? And we sit in this position because it can be helpful to that mentality, to that psychological state. So in the same way, we do all these things. It's, with this, if we really can develop this genuine faith, devotion, respect, and you can really calm down our ego and so on, then it has served the purpose. If your mind has no devotion, no faith, no respect, no trust, nothing, full of distraction, ego or anything, or just simply thinking, I'm following the tradition, because if I don't do it, people will think I'm not respecting, so I'm just doing it. There's no purpose. It's not even a prostration. Just remember, it's not a prostration, okay? You're following a tradition that people say prostration, but it's not really prostration. Okay? So each of these Buddha's names, as you go through them, it's really important that, all of them are important, precious. It's not, we should have appreciation for each of these Buddhas. Not like, show some respect. We might not have too much time, but at least, think of, okay, you must be also special. Okay, so there's this Buddha, the second Buddha is Dorjing Hingpo Rabdu Jombali Chansana, right? I prostrate to conquerors with Vajragarbha. So so there were these very special 35 Buddhas which have been very beneficial to bodhisattvas to confess their negativities and purify their negativities, and they have got that such, these Buddhas, they might have accumulated such a special karma that in the future, even when people just mention their name and just prostrate to them, that there's even the serious negative karmas can be purified. That must be very special. These Buddhas must be very special. When will we become like that? In terms of some of the prayers, he says, I like this prayer. I think it comes in one of the Nagarjuna's prayer. He says that, may I be such person that, by people seeing me brings joy, people hearing me brings joy, people thinking of me brings joy. May I be that type of person. Most of us, we ruined the mood of people. When we just come in, the moment. So for some of us, for some people, most of us might be type of people, the moment when they hear our voice, they're like, okay, that is coming. So for certain people, it really becomes like that, Buddha is such that just thinking about him, brings peace, reminds wisdom, reminds compassion. and so on. And just looking at the stature of Buddha. He's just a human being, okay? He was just a human being, but looking at his stature, because stature represents him. And when we look at his stature and think of his teachings, think of what he did, his life, it makes our mind very peaceful. So he got that kind of power. So in the same way, these Buddhas, they also got that kind of power. And then they deserve some respect, okay? So we can go through all of them. Okay, I read a little bit. Sangye le chas jo, semja tam ja ta bola ma le chas jo, sangye le chas jo, chuli chas jo, gino le chas jo, semja ta mal ma chas da ming dong, sangye le chas jo, chuli chas jo, gini ning dong shi jo, sangye le chas jo. De jin ji ba da ji me yang dong zo bu san ji shak jo to ba le chang zo lo do ji ba da jo ba le chang zo le ring ji won le chang zo lo wang ge jo ba le chang zo le po de le chang pa jin le chang zo le ring ji me le chang zo le ring ji da wo le chang zo tong wa do yin le chang zo le ring ji da wo le chang zo le tu ma me ba le chang zo le pa jin le chang zo le sang ba le chang zo le sang be jin le chang zo chula la chang zo le chula la le chang zo le pa sang le chang zo le sen de pa le chang zo le zi ji tai le chang zo le wo ba le chang zo nyang ni me ba le chang zo le se me ji ba le chang zo le me do ba le chang zo le de jin shi ba chang ba zo number ba on ba chen ba le chang zo le de jin shi ba pe me zo number ba on ba chen ba le chang zo le no ba le chang zo le chen ba le chang zo le chen ba shi de yong da le chang zo le wang bu do ge jian zi ji je ba le chang zo le xin de number no ba le chang zo le yong le xin de number jo le chang zo le number no be shi ba le chang zo ko ne no ko be ba le chang zo le rin je be me number no ba le chang zo le de jin shi ba da chong ba yang da bo zo ba san je rong bu je pe ma la ra de shi ba rong ge je ba le chang zo lo. This is the prostration. Okay? So, in some of these rituals, especially rituals that were composed in Tibetan Buddhism, and some of the commentaries, they talk about, we even have tankas of these 35 Buddhas having different color and so on. And some great scholars also have questioned the authenticity of it. There's one great master called Sakya Pendita from Sakya tradition. He even questioned it because one of these 35 Buddhas, is holding a weapon. I don't remember which weapon. It's definitely not a gun. Sorry. No more jokes. Yes.
Should we chant in English or Tibetan?
Let me answer this question. Okay. Very important question. I think I met you before.
Yeah.
Where?
In Sikkim.
Really? Okay.
I met Bodhgaya about it.
Okay, then when you go back to them, you tell only good things about me, okay? Kidding. Okay. I will remember that question, okay? It's important. You remind me, okay? If in case I forgot. Okay, so this great master called Sakya Pendita, he says that, especially in the Sutra tradition, especially Buddhas, when they are wearing these monastic robes and so on, there's no such, it's inappropriate. Is it? Inappropriate to hold a weapon. Only in tantras, then of course these deities were not in the monastery robes, like this one and that one. Then they can hold the weapons. But usually Buddhas, they are peaceful, they don't hold weapons. And then he says, how come we have this, the paintings of 35 Buddhas of confession, Sutra of confession, holding weapons? It totally doesn't make sense. I really agree with him. Okay? I agree with him. I think it just doesn't make sense. And then even if it's true, if you can follow the visualization of these Buddhas, 35 Buddhas different, some of these tankas, below each of these Buddhas, you see the name of these Buddhas. So if certain Buddha is blue, then if you can visualize these Buddhas, it's very nice. But even if you can't visualize any of them, there's really nothing wrong. Okay, there's a reason. I have a reason for this. And the reason is because I talked about 3 different traditions. So in Sutra tradition, even though it talks about Buddha, it talks about Bodhisattva, but it doesn't talk the color, how many faces, how many hands of that Buddha or Bodhisattvas have. It never says that. And also partly because it's not for the visualization. Because usually visualization is a special practice of Vajrayana tradition. Okay? And visualization of deity is like, okay, visualizing there's this deity in front of me, he has this and that. It's not a Mahayana Sutra thing. Okay? So in Sutra, when we practice Sutra, we just think, okay, there are these Buddhas, there are these Bodhisattvas, and so on. We don't have to go details. So that's why any Bodhisattva, in fact, you might read a whole sutra of one particular Buddha, one particular deity like Avalokiteshvara or Samantabhadra or Manjushri. You might read the whole big sutra and you will find nothing about the color of that Buddha or the color of that Bodhisattva. It's not a Mahayana Sutra thing. Because in a Sutra thing, it's mainly about, okay, there's this Buddha, there's this Bodhisattva, it's great, and I have faith, devotion, I pray to you, save me, help me, bless me, that's all. It's not about how many faces that Buddha has. It's not about how many hands Buddha has. But in Tantra tradition, then it's very important because each of them has meaning. Each of them has meaning. So then in order to remember that meaning, then we have to know how many faces, how many hands, the color and everything. Okay? So that's why if you can't remember, if you can't visualize the color and all of these Buddhas, it's also okay. Okay? And then next, usually Sutra of 3 sections, sometimes they have, sometimes they say something like the different ways of counting it. Some of them, they say among one of the 3 sections, one is rejoice or something, all these things. Some of them even put the request for turning the wheel of Dharma. But I agree with this great master called Taranatha. He says, Sutra 3 sections. First is the prostration, second is the confession, and third is the dedication. So I agree with him. So these are the 3 sections. Okay, 3 sections. In some of the commentaries, it also says Sutra 3 sections. It's not really section. It means more like heap. Okay, heap. What to say? Like something piled together, right? Because Sanskrit word for this section is actually skanda, which is more like an aggregate, 5 aggregate, and skanda. They're just the same word in Sanskrit. So in this commentary it says because by doing the prostration, you're going to accumulate a huge merit. By doing the confession, you commit a huge positive karma, merit. So that's why it's skanda, which means aggregate of merit. Okay, there are different ways of understanding it. For us, it's better to it's simple to understand it in sections, 3 sections. It's just easy to remember, but at least we can remember it. So the next section is 대단한 소보 초지 지denja 강탐전에 진식바 자정바 양도부 조보산지 좀대대 강치 니지쇼도 소시집에 산지 좀대대 대다담지 달로 건수소 나기 제와도 제와 통마다 담아만 집안 코안은 거에 제와신다던 디블레 집어도 지도 자와도 지벌레 지스여로 초된지 거랑 견도지 거랑 초시 견도지 거 초보도 초도 자와 초벌레 지스여로 참마 집어가에 리집어도 지도 자와도 지벌레 지스여 먹게와 제 레제는 양도부 라완 슈버도 주도 자와도 주벌레 지스여로 레제도 강그린 나가선제냐원 체원 된대제는 선체원 예닥지 요든 체원 윤 타급도 체원 라더 체원 하저는 번스 체원 엄마마서 주원 따와로 번점바 주원 산제 주원 렌제번 메지버 주고 레제도 바칸라 바테 다담제 산제 좀 되는 이시스 주바 젠도 주바 빵도 주바 세마리 주바 쳔바스 바테 다게 진가 돌려쳐서 문자보 메베도 렌제 주제 노브르지 라서 산제 좀 되대 대다담제 달고 건수소 오케이 렌제 장 노브르지 락소 I vow to abstain from them henceforth. Until that part is the second section, which is the confession. Okay? So, even though, the idea of rebirth or reincarnation is not scientific, we don't remember it. But there also seems like, it's very hard to say that it doesn't even exist. there are people really who remembers it. And now I heard some universities in America or somewhere, there are even some of the universities now they are opening a particular department to investigate more on the reincarnation idea, because they found quite many cases. And then so far, one thing that happened is the people who remember their past life, they are more interested about people who remember their past life from West or maybe some other communities or countries where people don't believe in reincarnation that much. So far what they found out is that the people who remember this past life, most of them happen to be died from a tragic, So I think they also found many of people who remembered their past life, and in their past life they have lost their life during the World War and so on. So sometimes they talk about these children, some of them, they don't have 2 fingers or 3 fingers or something. And then they talk about, they remember their past life, how they died in the past life, and how their, the enemies cut their finger and so on. And then when they finally, they do, whatever research and everything, and finally sometimes they even find a dead body of this. And then find out that what these children are claiming is 100% true. The hands have been cut in the same way that, we can almost find the marks on this child. And also it's quite true that many of them, as they grow up, if you think they are lying, then when they grow up, then they may tell even more lies, then they become famous, right? But almost all of them, the same experience that as they grow up, they forget more. Then after some time, they're almost okay, now I don't remember at all. So there are these things happening. So, even though we don't remember it, even though scientifically it's not 100% proven, but it's very difficult to, we can't just say, okay, not true, not true, not true. Some religious people, some religious people who are very, adamant, or I don't know, what is the right word? Science says something like, no, it's not true, not true, not true. You can just keep saying it, it's okay. But it doesn't change the fact, right? Just because you don't accept the fact doesn't mean the fact will be changed. So if, certain people can be reborn, same people, then it's very hard to say that, we will not reborn again. And if there's rebirth, if reincarnation, there must be a law. And that law, we call it karma. Some people have better rebirth. Some people have, the birth is really makes the whole difference, right? And there must be a causes and conditions for that. For Buddhism, it's the karma. In some way, I'm not sure. I don't like to talk about all religions. But I think, if everything is really created by God, then I really don't think, we can't say that it was not created by God. We don't know. But if they are all created by God, I think it's very hard to say that it's equal. I really don't think so. It's really not equal, right? So for Buddhism, it's the karma. Everything is determined by the karma. So if there's karma, then there's definitely positive karma and negative karma. And so, if we can purify this negative karma, if we can accumulate more positive karma, simply by doing such recitation, whenever we can. Something that according to Buddha is talking so much about negative karma and all these things. If he says this is so powerful to purify it, then it's something that we should happily accept it, right? It's not like, by reading the Sutra 3 sections our bank account will go down. It's just a simple minor thing, and if we can do it, that would be nice. So that's why, just really okay, we might have harmed a lot of people, intentionally or unintentionally. Life is such a thing that sometimes I feel like, sometimes if we are not careful enough, not wise enough, the people that we really harm is actually the people that we really try to help. Really. That's why so many conflict happens. Usually people with enemies, people we have conflict. Our relationship is quite stable, really. He doesn't like me, I don't like him. But the parents and children, friends, boyfriend, girlfriend, everything, At the end, they cry by saying, I did everything I can for you. And the other person also says, I also did everything for you. I sacrificed my life for you. Both of them crying. Why? So that's why forget about, intentionally harming people. Even, sometimes like parents or people who are senior, we want to help people. We want to, have some people, we really love them. We really want to have a good future and whatever. In the end, sometimes we are the one who really ruined their life and so on. So that's why we do, what I'm trying to say is, forget about, when we really harm someone, even when we try to help someone, we actually harm a lot. In either way, sometimes I feel like, it's really, it's really so important. As a wise person, I think it's very important to know our flaws. It's as a wise person. Because if you are only thinking about other people's flaw, only thinking about what this person is doing right and wrong, you can't be a wise person really. A wise person is constantly thinking about what the flaws I have, and they accept it, right? And kind people are really they really accept it, and they really feel sorry. Okay? Whatever mistakes they did, maybe I don't think I was wrong, but if you think I did wrong, you might be true. I do wrong things, so I'm sorry. It's much more simple, right? Instead of trying to prove, no, it was your mistake, it just makes things worse and worse. Just say sorry, It's not easy, right? But at least. So that's why, there are a lot of things, some things maybe will not make much sense for people who are not culturally familiar with the Buddha's ideas. But either way, you can just think of, in this sutra, there might be some of them, but you can just think of any negative karma, anything that is wrong. Anything, even if you don't think it was wrong, but maybe because of certain things it become wrong to others or whatever, for anything, just I'm confessing. I'm confessing all the wrong things that I did for today. All my past life and so on. So you read it. And then finally the third section is Sanji Jumde de Dala Gonzo, Dagi Jewa da Jewa Toma da Tama Manjibani Ko and Ko Jewa Jinda, the Jimbatana to the Genesis Chibal. Second Jetanza gave it to a Kanabadan, Dagi Sundun gave it to a Kanabad, Dagi Sambar Choba never gave it to a Kanabad, Dagi Simji and the Member Jiba gave it to a Kanabad, Dagi Chanji, Simjiba gave it to a Kanabad, Dagi Lana maybe she gave it to a Kanabad, the Datum the Chief, the Dujin Dum the Dum the Lana Manchiban. Kono Majiba do Comia como Yonsong Lana maybe Yanto was over Janjo, the Yonsong or Geo, Chedda Sanji Junden and Yonsong over the Chedama Omba Sanji Junden and Yonsong or Jibad. Chida Dadajo Sanji Junden and Yonsong or the Batajan, the Dagi Yonsong or Geo. Or the Batata Dagi Yonsong or Geo, the Quatan and Association. Okay. Cheda Dadajo Sanji Junden and Tada Yonsong or the Batata Dagi Yonsong or Geo. Up to that part is the third section. Dedication. Okay? So the dedication is why it's important to make the dedication is even though we believe in this law of karma, right? So let's say according to law of karma, it's almost like it's law of karma is something. It's like a natural law. You can just take care of yourself. It's like an automatic machine. But in other way, without the dedication, it's almost like, the money that we use, it can be used for something, it's always used for something that we want, right? Because we are the one who's spending it. But sometimes it's, if we want to use our money in a very productive, meaningful way, then we might, what to say, we may want to make a budget. Okay, this is for this budget, this is for this budget, so I'm going to, spend this much money, I want to collect this much money, I want to make this for this budget, and then really want to use it. And this one, no matter what, I'm not going to use for any other thing. And then, this way of managing life, managing money, can be very productive, right? We are using it for something that really matters, something that is important. In this way, there's very little chance that money will be wasted for nothing. Right? Otherwise, we might just buy a biscuit. We are thinking about, buying a house one day, but every time we're buying coffee, some biscuits and sandwich, we will never get a house, right? So in the same way, these karmas, okay, we just commit karma. The karmas can be, can bring result any time. Whatever conditions happens, the karma is like, karma is almost like a children, If you have a boy and girl, there's a dog come and the boy is about to run, and this cat come and the girl is about to run, it's just like this. So if you dedicating that whatever the good karma I have accumulated, may it be the reason for other sentient beings to enjoy happiness, may it be the reason for me to achieve enlightenment, may all of these karmas that I have accumulated, may it be dedicated for that project. So we are really making a budget for it. Who is sanction? Sanction, right? Sanction? Okay. So that's why it can be, it's a very powerful way of managing our positive karma. We should be very smart. Even for our better life, we need to be smart. And of course, to achieve enlightenment, we need to be very, very wise. Okay. Now, to answer your question, what is your name?
Rob.
Huh?
Rob.
Rob.
Robert. Yeah.
You know Karma Tsering, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Karma Tsering is actually my roommate. Okay. Okay. So, because mainly the mantras we talk about, the word itself is very important. So that's why mantra like Om Mani Padme Hum is Sanskrit and not translated into Tibetan, because in this case the words are very important. But usually teachings of Buddha, the meanings are important. Meanings are important. So that's why when you talk about, came from Buddha, came through all the great masters, we're not talking about the word, which language. We're talking mainly about the meaning, because we respect in Buddha, we have faith in Buddha, we go for religion, dharma, all these. Not because of the language, it's because of the words. So that's why when we read the order transmission, also we can read in any language. As long as, okay, I got the order transmission of this sutra in Tibetan version. I received it from Sangjin Yempa Rinpoche. I think I also received from Gyaltsab Rinpoche. So I received it in Tibetan language. But if we go back to the history, it came in Sanskrit version. But there's no problem, because it's the meaning, it's about the meaning, it's not about the words. So then, now when you receive oral transmission from me in Tibetan language, you can actually give oral transmission to other people in English language, because it's not about the language, it's not about the words, it's about the meaning. So how much that person will receive the oral transmission depends on how good that translation is. If the translation is so good that it doesn't miss any meaning that came from this sutra, all the way from Buddha, then that person gets the whole transmission. If the translation is not good, and some meanings are missing, then the transmission will also not be enough. But in either way, when we chant it, when we chant it by ourselves, or when we give oral transmissions to others, any language is perfect. It's perfectly fine. Otherwise, if you talk about, Buddhist sutras in Chinese language, and then if you have to give that auto transmission to other people in Chinese language and saying that it all came from Buddha, then the question would be, did Buddha speak Chinese? Okay, I'm actually meant to talk about Vajrasattva, but let's do it tomorrow. I hope. Okay? Okay, I hope all of you have a very good evening. See you tomorrow. Hopefully.